Alright, let's chat and play some Counter-Strike. Now yesterday, me and a colleague of mine actually went and critiqued a pretty big redesign that happened for a website known as The Age, which is an Australian newspaper basically. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about critiques in general. So yesterday, Angus and I were admittedly quite critical of the redesign. I mean, we were looking at things that weren't working so well, and we were ignoring those which were working, well, we were ignoring a lot of what was actually working really well. Now, whilst that is somewhat typical of a design critique, what was missing was context. So all we knew about the redesign was that we could assume their hypothetical goals, but what we don't know was all of the different stakeholders and all of their different kind of motivations and goals during this redesign. And that's extremely important to kind of remember or keep in mind when you are critiquing something. The designer is not always the most important person in the room, and that's a big thing to keep in mind. What I mean by that is that there are multiple parties which actually come together to create products or apps. It's not just the designer and their goals and the users and their goals. Businesses exist for sometimes very different reasons, and you need to take those factors into account when you are looking at redesigns. So as I was saying, we kind of critically looked at this website and we critiqued it, right? What we didn't take into consideration were the obvious and very important kind of business drivers or business kind of goals behind the redesign. It's very hard as an external designer to just go to some website and critique it. I mean, you can do the kind of obvious usability things, which we tried to do yesterday in yesterday's critique, which was looking at the heuristics, but there are so many other factors that you just don't know. And quite often you have to respect the fact that you are not the only person with an opinion and you're not the only basically stakeholder present. And I think that's incredibly important to remember as a designer in any company as well, is that there are many people which have vested interest, and as a designer you need to juggle those interests alongside the user's goals. It's not always, as a user experience designer, you quite often get you get blinkers on or blinders and you focus too intensely on the user. That statement may sound like a joke because of course that's our job to, right? But it's actually our job to make sure that the business also succeeds. And quite often those two, they clash. And as a user experience designer, you need to sit down and consider, well, what is the best option or best result for the user in the long run? And that's a very tricky thing to keep in mind. So I guess my advice or the point of today's episode is to make you as designers or as people who are interested in design more aware that you're not the only voice in the room, that you need to consider other priorities. You need to keep other people or stakeholders or goals in mind when you are designing something. And you'll figure this out, and you'll know when to pick your battles, or you'll learn when to pick your battles and when not to pick your battles. And that's I would say that is honestly about 50% of my day-to-day job is trying to be diplomatic and trying to communicate and understand different people and different goals within quite a large organization that I work. So thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you learned something about the kind of realities of design in the commercial space. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me in the comment section below. And if you like today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more of this in the future. Thanks, and I will see you guys next time.